Created by nature, captured by Glade.
Preparing Britain for war can be hit and miss.
Oh dear.
Developing weapons for the 21st century can be an inexact science.
All they say is we want this on there.
Equipping soldiers for the future isn't always that straightforward.
As a navigational aid, it made a good ashtray.
It made a good ashtray.
Inside Britain's top weapons research agency, War Machine starts next Monday at 9 on 4.
Moseley.
I have a motto: vote Labour, sleep Tory.
Power and betrayal are becoming a way of life.
She doesn't mean anything. You know the rules. We're both adults.
I just don't know how much more of this public humiliation I can take.
Moseley, leader, fascist, adulterer. Thursday at 9 on 4.
One squeeze for me, Nige.
In 1991, this satellite guided missiles towards Saddam Hussein's tanks. This summer, it was helping farmers improve the yields of their wheat and barley. Precision farming, guided by satellite, is the latest thing in combine harvesting. For the farmer, the combine harvester has almost godlike status. It is the one machine that can convert his carefully tended crop into profit. Back in the 19th century, the reaper binder replaced farm labourers working with sickle and scythe. After cutting and binding into sheaves, the wheat was left to dry in the fields. Born early in the steam age, the thresher was the biggest machine on the farm. It separated the grain from the straw ready for milling. This one was made by Ransomes, a Suffolk company famed for its threshing expertise. As late as the 1940s, Britain's farmers still depended on 18th century technology like this to bring in the harvest. Land Army girls Joan and Pat remember their days in the threshing gang.
Well, there used to be about 5 girls in my district go around with the threshing drum. The band cutter would cut the bands and at the same time throw the sheaf to the feeder. The feeder would fan it out because you can't just throw the whole sheaf in, it would bung up the machine. But the other girls all took turns in the other jobs, didn't they?
Yeah, the worst ones on the chaff.
In the hierarchy of threshing, the dusty job of clearing the chaff was usually left for women. The king positions of band cutter and feeder were mostly reserved for men.
If you got anybody that was strong enough to carry 18 stone of wheat, then you had a girl carrying wheat as well. And I can only remember one that could do it.
While the thresher spewed out grain at one end, it delivered straw to the baler at the other.
We went on the balers as well, didn't we, Joan?
Yeah. Hand wiring, all those rusty wires,
Yeah.
put it through, run round the other side and fasten it, and then back again before it pushed the next one through. You also got a lot of rats as well.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we used to get 6pence a tail at one stage, because otherwise it would have eaten all the corn there was. And I can remember somebody shouted, "Joan, duck!" And I ducked, and a rat jumped off the stack onto the back of my neck, like that. And I bent my head, and it went over my head and off. And I can still feel its feet in the back of my neck when I think about it now. Yeah.
Joan was also handy with a shovel. and worked as a threshing driver's mate, stoking the engine and keeping it topped up with water. While she was struggling to keep the Edwardian steam engine running, the real future of harvesting had begun to take root on the British farm. This American-built Holt Caterpillar 38 was one of the first combine harvesters to reach Britain. The Holt combined the work of the binder and thresher in one machine. In minutes, it completed a process that had taken gangs of workers a whole season to complete. It was bought by a wealthy Lincolnshire farmer in 1930.
Well, the first day we was that surprised, weren't we, really, to have a combine, weren't we?
That's right, yeah.
And, I mean, we'd never seen anything like it at all, had we?
No.
You know, we was absolutely novices at the job. We was petrified, really, to get on it, wasn't we?
Oh, aye, it was something. There was only about 3 in the country, I think. There was Caterpillar Holts, weren't there?
Well, I think this one was the first in Lincolnshire, wasn't it?
1927 manufacture, wasn't it?
Is it? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, 1927.
Well, I was quite proud, weren't we, Ken?
Well, yeah.
We thought we was, well...
We got something no one else had, hadn't we?
That's right, yes.
And you would see the people over the edge stoking and leading and stacking, and we were doing it all in one go. But of course, it did away with a lot of staff when they really got going.
Yes, it did.
I mean, there used to be dozens of us.
Left to the mercy of the elements for 49 years, this is all that remains of Ken and Fred's beloved workmate. As the oldest combine relic in Britain, it's being nursed back to life by agricultural engineer Davy Shield.
Don't break it down. Same time as a millwright, in other words, making threshing mills or making bits for threshing mills and conveyors, etc. Balers, combines, tractors, you name it, just agricultural engineer. I've seen the advent of the combine in this country. They said it would never work. I'm not surprised when you look at this stuff. But it's evolved and here we are. But this was the start.
Once dismissed as an American eccentricity, this pile of combine scrap still holds fond memories for its pioneers, Ken and Fred.
But wasn't it a mucky old thing?
Oh, it's terrible.
Instead of belts, it was all chain-driven. And what you used to do, you had a kettle, an old tin kettle. You used to fill it with waste oil, set it going steady, and just team it on them as it went. Well, you know what a chain does, it whipped it up, didn't it?
Yes.
And you got it all over you, then you got all the dust, and by night they knew you'd been combining, didn't they?
Yes. Yeah.
It was a dirty old thing.
But we liked it, didn't we, Ken?
Oh, we did a good job.
Yeah, much easier work, wasn't it then? Well, it was like a big wheel, ain't it, Ken?
It was like a ship's wheel, wasn't
That's
it?
what I think. We used to call it HMS Battleship, didn't we?
That's right, yeah, we always called it the Battleship.
Yes, we always called it the Battleship,
Yeah,
that's what
yeah.
it went in like.
Yeah.
It was never the combine.
Sealed within its own air-conditioned tent, this is the first ever British-built combine harvester. The Lincolnshire-made Clayton and Shuttleworth, launched in 1928, was clearly a hastily manufactured copy of the American Holt Caterpillar. Although an effective machine, some of the Clayton's engineering left a lot to be desired.
This is the one bit of this combine I don't like. This cutter bar has to be removed for transport, and it's an awful job.
It took Davy and his team 3 hours to reunite the combine with its cutter bar.
Eventually, the people that owned it never took it off. They just cut a bigger hole in the hedge to let it through the next field.
Despite having the appearance of an insect from outer space, the Clayton worked right up until the mid-50s.
With a bit of luck, it may start.
Too precious to ever harvest again, this is the closest the old machine gets to its former working life.
There's a lever here.
The Clayton is a veritable symphony of belts, conveyors and moving parts. A mobile production line, it converted a field of wheat into a tank of grain in one noisy process.
The crop is cut by the knife, as you can see, transported into the canvas with a reel. From there, carried on up the elevator, into that conveyor there, along and into the thrashing drum.
The main body of the combine is modelled on the threshing machine. The drum separates the grain from the husk and straw.
That is the thrashing drum. The grain is taken along here, through the riddles or sieves, and put up the elevator.
This takes the clean grain up into the tank.
The straw is carried along the straw walker. Show you here.
The Clayton delivered the valuable straw loose. Other combines bundled, baled or chopped it.
There's the straw walkers there, through the window. See, if you look at that, how the straw comes along, falls down here. The grain is on that riddle there, through there and up into top. Okay?
A combine might thresh and sieve grain 3 or 4 times before finally sending it to the tank.
Carried up there, straight through onto the top sieve, and then into the grain tank. And that's basically how it works, in a nutshell.
Despite its obvious potential, it took British farmers years to accept that the combine harvester could help them bring in the harvest.
I remember one farmer saying to me, he said, Ken, he said, these are not for this country. It'd never go, he said, because it was the only combine there was around.
That's right, yes.
Yeah. But he was wrong, wasn't he?
It says here, the internet is the future of business. We have to be on the internet.
Why?
Doesn't say.
Tell us who your best friend is and we'll arrange a 20% discount off every call you make to them. Join free on 0800 05 55 55.
Why worry about your diarrhea attack coming back? With just 1 dose of Imodium, you could stop diarrhea and get on with your day. Imodium.
What combine was it, sir? Right, it's a combine harvester part, sir, is it? £320 each. Wrapped it round a tree. Oh, how wonderful. David, got your ears on, mate? Michael, can you give me a buzz up in the office, please? Michael.
At the peak of the summer harvest, David Bagley runs a 24-hour emergency service, supplying spare combine parts to frenzied farmers from all over England. The combine harvester is now indispensable, but fortunately for Bagley, even the most prized machines go wrong.
First thing this morning, it's mayhem. On the telephone, have we got this? Have we got that? They have to catch the harvest when they can, and weather is the problem. and it is one of those seasons. In fact, we've got rain forecast for tonight. Slow them down, we always say in this office. Slows them down, it gives us a chance to take breath and start again.
Even with the best combine harvester in the world, the elements still have the last laugh. For centuries, British farmers have battled with the harvest weather, but they weren't convinced that combines could. Not until post-war shortages forced them to produce more food with less men. Alice Chalmers' All-Crop 60 was the Model T of the combine world, the first mass-produced trailed combine.
This combine come over just after the war in martial aid. There was quite a few come over during the war. It is not a very well engineered thing on today's standard, but them days it was brilliant. This particular combine come to harvest clover seed on the farm when I was a lad, and Father didn't think it was going to do it, because when we had ordinary threshing machine come to do it, it was what we call a clover huller, had 2 threshing drums, and it had to be put through terribly slow and this, that and the other. And I sat on this combine and drove it round the field, and I thought this wasn't a bad job. And to be quite honest with you, I'm just sitting on a combine ever since.
Armed with leftover bomber wheels and painted Daredevil aviation silver, this German Class Super created quite a stir on its arrival in 1947. In peacetime, Class became a major force in combine production. With its folding Stuka wing cutter bar, it easily negotiated Britain's narrow gates and lanes.
Yeah, no hydraulics on this one.
As Europeans, Class were more in tune with the British farmers' needs.
Then we're going to put the knife in now. This is the knife. What goes in between the fingers there, and that cuts the corn.
But even for seasoned farmers like Gordon and Ronnie Green, it was a time-consuming 2-man job.
Every time you went into different fields, you do all this.
Getting that thing out.
Put the connector right on that ball there. All right?
Yeah.
Perhaps a little frustrating when you could see the rain clouds gathering on the horizon.
There, aren't they? Right here, then.
That's where the bags of corn go on there when we've bagged up.
It has taken them half an hour, but the supermen are finally ready to get into the wheat.
All right?
Right.
You just want to give her a whirl then?
Yeah.
Winding the cutter bar up and down in each field soon became a tiresome chore. What farmers really needed was a self-propelled, purpose-built machine. And here it is. The American Massey Harris 21 was the birth of the combine harvester as we know it today. It was launched here in 1941, and Ron Knight remembers his dad buying one as a companion to the All-Crop 60.
They come over here just after the war in boxes, and I can remember as a lad seeing these boxes opened up and this combine come out. And funny thing, they look twice as big then as they do today.
The updated Massey Harris 780 had a hydraulically adjustable cutter bar. Built at the company's new plant in Kilmarnock, it was a farmer's favourite. The 780 became a familiar sight working in fleets up and down Britain. It was the first combine to arrive on the Green Brothers farm in Suffolk. combine's natural habitat was the vast American prairies. These giant machines were having to adapt to Britain's age-old patchwork of fields and hedgerows. The smaller farmer, loyal to class, also wanted a self-propelled machine, but in miniature.
Class then had to go back to the drawing board and consider how a self-propelled machine could be produced in order to go through gateways. And this Columbus was one of the early ventures in that direction.
Lovingly restored by the Scottish team, this is the first time Davy and Ian have let the Columbus out in the field to harvest.
It had all the features of the bigger combines we know today, but on a smaller scale. And being self-propelled, of course, that was the attraction rather than the trailed one. They did a job, but as the farming grew more intensive and all the rest of it, and bigger, it wasn't designed for the big farmer, if you like. So
it wasn't even for the small farmer. I mean, the farmer demanded from the manufacturers a small combine which would go through gates.
Right.
And once he got it, it was too small.
Right.
The throughput wasn't enough, and so he wanted something bigger. And so the manufacturers had to go back to the drawing board again and do a rethink.
Obsessed with rising food targets, farming made way for the Mercury and Matador.
much bigger machine than the Columbus, for instance. Much wider, bigger cutter bar. And the farmer had to adapt his gates to take care of that.
This was the 60s, and combine production was at its peak. Class was king. But even the mighty fall.
Now the traction belt was gone, mate.
You what?
Now the traction belt was gone.
Oh, yeah.
A combine breakdown at harvest time is a farmer's nightmare.
Yeah, the main drive belt was broken. Look, you can see all the hot bits have broken off it. That means I'd have to have a new belt, and she'd have to be towed back to the yard because she won't go now with the main drive belt gone. Yeah.
The stoical character of Suffolk farmers like the Green brothers keeps frayed tempers to a minimum. With so much depending on the combine's performance, not all farmers manage to keep their cool.
These guys, when they break down, they want an answer straight away. They must keep going because harvest is harvest. And of course, it's my harvest as well.
With more than 70 calls a day during the summer harvest, David himself often has to nip out to look for odd bits and bobs. The Green brothers' harvest might just be saved by a drive belt scavenged from this rusting Matador.
We can have it off for about 8 o'clock tonight, thank you.
The Milk Float boys are David's mobile demolition team. On an average August day, they might dissect over 30 combine carcasses to cannibalise those essential body parts.
This combine new would have been in excess of £100,000. It's about 3 years old. It was burnt out last year locally. So there's quite a lot of useful parts on this old girl still. Today, the most expensive combine harvester on the market is $250,000, that in a good season will only harvest for about a fortnight or 3 weeks at the most. So it's a lot of money stood there, and if something like this happens, by Jove, big disaster.
Sorry, David, I've got P.A. Turney here, 1540, I think it is, on loading auger. Whereabouts is it?
Yes, I know all about that one, Sarah. It's the gentleman that wrapped it round a tree this morning. OK, thank you, Sarah. Just send him round the back.
With the help of Bagley's boys and a second-hand auger, the Northamptonshire farmer was back harvesting the very next day.
Nowadays, you've even got, what, air conditioning in them. They're marvellous, they are.
Well,
and as quiet as anything,
Yeah,
aren't
but
they?
when we'd finished today's combining, Ken, you couldn't tell if it was white people or black people, could you?
No.
I mean, today you can have a collar and tie on.
That's right, yeah.
And I mean, that lad of mine comes home, you know, as clean as he went.
Yeah.
Julian Dan is in sole command of this £250,000 state-of-the-art Massey Ferguson 40. With space-age machines like this, farming is now a precise business. As Julian powers through the crop, he constantly monitors satellite data and combine performance. Before the era of obsessional food production, when the combine was God, this field was divided into 5. But despite cheaper food, the public has never forgiven farmers for changing their countryside.
People like hedges and they like trees and they like orchid-shaped fields. And we're not allowed to destroy them today. But if you've got a combine that's got 30-foot header, it's no good in a little tiny paddock.
The combine harvester has become a high-tech leviathan. But as the demands on farmers change, it may well have to downsize.
All my life I've been trying to produce more and more and more, and now we come to the point where we are not producing, well, we're not producing so much now as we did 2 years ago.
Food production is no longer top of Europe's agenda. Instead, profit margins versus environmental concerns, crop quotas and set-aside are the dilemmas facing today's farmers.
I did 17 acre one day, and Mr. Burns come, my word, Freddie, says you've done well. And do you know today, I mean, they do 100 and don't think about it, do they?
No.
That's the difference from my day to today. When we was young, we was real buddies, weren't we? Real beer drinkers together, like. Yeah.
Don't tell too many stories.
No, I better not, Ken. No.
It made you realise how old you're getting.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Yeah.
Machine.